Good afternoon, and welcome to another Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation's Young Lions Jazz Master virtual sessions. I'm your guest host, Michael Kernodle, and we have a special treat, everybody. Today's educator is none other than John O'Leary, and his topic is Ideas for Developing Modern Improvisational Language on the Piano. So just want to remind you, if you're coming in and if you have any questions, just go into that chat feature and type it in, and we'll try to leave some time for our educators to answer anything. Also, be sure to check out the studio archives of the past video sessions at clearwaterjazz.com's education and outreach section. And that's brought to you by our sponsors at Blue Water Wealth Management at Stewart Partners and Duke Energy, as well as our Young Lions podcast available wherever you stream. And that's brought to you by our friends at Marine Max Clearwater. Just search Young Lions Jazz Master virtual sessions wherever you stream. I mean, where do we start, John? I mean, you've had some awesome sessions that we've had in the past. I'm just going to name a few, and I enjoy every one of them. Here's some of my favorites: An Approach to Jazz Harmony on the Piano, or how about how to develop rhythmic ideas to improvise better. Now, you also did an awesome job with the What I Love About series. So if you didn't check that out, go back into the archives. You did one on Bill Evans, Earl Hines, Oscar Peterson. Amazing content for you to check out. And just a little bit about John, if you don't know him, he is the pianist for a highly acclaimed trio called La Lucha, and they're based here in Tampa Bay area. Awesome group. He's a jazz pianist and, get this, a neuroscientist. So believe it or not, he not only plays he plays the piano, but he also plays the tuba. He's a graduate of University of South Florida, where he studied the tuba, jazz piano, and biochemistry. And he graduated cum laude with a BA in jazz piano performance, a minor in tuba performance, and an honors thesis in biochemistry. So he's been on major stages. His group La Lucha is killing it here, not just here in Tampa Bay, but all over. So you got to hear them. But today, you get a chance to hear some knowledge about improvisation. So I think we all can benefit for this. So John, without any further ado, the stage is all yours.
Thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you to the Clearwater Jazz Holiday for having me, Michael, for a wonderful introduction and hosting us today. And today's class is about developing a modern language of improvisation on the piano. And the piano we are really lucky as pianists to be able to play lines, and also chords. And that helps a lot because sometimes we want to take what's going on in the music and change it a little bit. We can get away with more than a horn player can because we can change the chords of whatever we're playing to make it sound to what we're looking for. A horn player can't make me change the chord. They can just play what they hear, and then if I catch on to what they're going for and change my chord appropriately, we can be together. Or if I don't, then we'll have some dissonance. And either way, it can be really interesting. So that's a really important point about being a pianist when you're talking about modern jazz, is the ability to change the chords. What do I mean by that? So let's say we're playing So What. In the chord, there's two chords in the song. It's D minor, and the So What voicing, 1, 4, flat 7, minor third, and 5. And then you play that there, and one step up, which would be E, A, D, G, and B natural. That's the first chords. They're still in the same scale of D Dorian, so they're considered like the same sound. And then the next one would be E flat minor 7 in the fourths voicing. So E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, and B flat. And you go one step up. So F, B flat, E flat, A flat, and C. Yeah. So then the bass player will be playing in D minor. And then the bass player will be playing in E flat minor. So we're improvising and we're going and playing all our D minor stuff. And then eventually we run out of D minor stuff to play. We're like, well, it kind of sounds the same. So one way, one really interesting tip that I like to use is to change the quality of the chord. So instead of staying just D minor, what if we go 2 5s, D minor to G7? And so already it started to add an extra little thing. It's only the left hand. The right hand stayed the same. We didn't change much about how we were improvising on the right hand. So then, okay, so that's one. What other thing can we do? How about sus, like a D7 sus? A cool way of playing sus chords is by playing the two chord of, if that was a dominant chord, we play A minor, so play D on the bass and then A minor 9 on the right hand. It sounds like the chord from Maiden Voyage. Right? So then let's say you're doing your D minor stuff. And then here's sus. Now you've changed it to D sus. So instead of playing D minor, now you're playing D7. And it's really cool for creating different sounds, especially with tunes like that that are super static, right? We're not going, the chords are not moving very much. You're on D minor for 16 bars and then E flat minor for 8 bars. But then you can create, you're doing your D minor thing. so now you're opening up like the amount of sounds that you can play. Okay. And I love this tune. This is a great tune for this to use as a framework for modern jazz improvisation. Because if you go back and listen to the original recording from 1959, Kind of Blue, Miles Davis, they play very much inside of that D minor sound, you know. I think the Miles Davis solo was something like this. So, you know, like 1, flat 3, 5, 4, 5, 1. Very much inside the chords. And then what he's trying to say is that, hey, we can play modal. We don't have to play, you know, just on the melody. We can do modes. We can take the theory a little bit further than what's been done before. And so his big epiphany was that B natural there. The tune can be in the key of D Dorian rather than D minor. You know, it could have 1 flat in D minor instead of 2 flats in D minor. And to thinking about playing in scales and the chords could be, that was the whole spectrum, you know. All the white keys are the spectrum of the D Dorian. So this is a great tune as a framework for this, because we can start throwing different tools for improvisation at this tune. So the first tool that we talked about was changing the chord quality. And I'm going to make a note here. Chord quality, this is really important. Like I said before, it's because we're pianists, we can accompany ourselves and we can take it a little bit further than, I mean, other instruments can take it further as well. They might just, you know, we might not understand exactly what they're going for, and as pianists, and there'll be more tension. We can play it with less tension because we know that we're trying to change from a D minor 7 to a D7 sus, for example. Okay, number 1. Number 2 is try using different approaches. A teacher of mine in college, Steve Davis, he was a drummer, but also plays piano and just incredible improviser. He used to tell me to think about the different scales as rooms in a house, to think about it as a sound. When you're in a sound, you're in a room, and you can stay in that room for a little bit. You don't have to just go in the room of one of your house and then quickly leave and go to another room and then come back, and then you're not like exercising in your house. You go to the room, maybe go to the library, you sit down, you chill out. If you're lucky enough to have a whole room in your house dedicated to books, that'd be amazing. And then you just sit there and you read and you enjoy your study. Maybe you have a cup of tea and you stay in there for a little bit, you know? And so I like to think of it that way. And you can help move the song along by changing the sounds and staying in different sounds. So one sound that is not very modern, but it's used a lot in modern jazz, is the pentatonic scale. I'm pretty sure the pentatonic scale is one of the most oldest scales because it occurs naturally in the overtones. I believe the overtones are like the bass frequency. The next one is the bass frequency again. In this octave, we're going to have 2 tones. 1 and 5. And then in the next octave, we play 1 and 5 again, but now we have, instead of 2 notes, we're going to have 4 notes. 3, 5, 7. And then in the next one, we're going to have, instead of 4 notes, we're going to have 8 notes. I believe that's correct. And so if you look inside, you have especially in that last one, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. I think that was it. And so you have 1, 3, 5 here. And so just in about every continent, native people from different parts of the world who didn't talk to each other understand in some level some version of the pentatonic scale. There's a whole like ethnomusicology thing on the pentatonic scale, but it's I think Stravinsky wrote in the Firebird Suite, like 1909, is full of pentatonic stuff, like all these cool patterns. And I'm sitting down with Dick Hyman and we're listening to the Firebird Suite, and I'm telling him, wow, they say that pentatonic is modern, but he's doing all that pentatonic stuff right here. He's like, yeah, it's really old, you know? And so pentatonic is a great tool for improvising, expanding your improvisation language outside of diatonic, major and minor scales, and your bebop scales. You know, outside of those things, where can you go to be a little bit more modern? And a pentatonic is a great way to start. So what is a pentatonic? It's just a scale that has 5 notes. Any 5 notes will do. We have a traditional pentatonic of 1, minor third, 4, 5, 7, and 1. But that's just a pentatonic. Any 5 notes, you know? How about D, E flat, G, A, and C? That could be a pentatonic, or D, E flat, A flat, A, 1, 2, 3, 4, and C. So one thing you could do is come up with different combinations of 5 notes that you think sounds cool and try improvising on that. I mean, just imagine playing So What, and then all of a sudden you go into this crazy pentatonic. I don't know. So, like, it's kind of cool. That can be a really cool sound. So it doesn't have to fit a certain chord or a certain thing. it's okay to go out of the chord changes. I think what's important is to come back in. So that's another big concept that we're going to talk about. With any of these tools, regardless of the scale or the chord quality that you use, you can always step in and out of the given tonality of the tune. So we're going to come back to that. I'm going to make a note to come back to that. That's called sidestepping. Okay, so pentatonic. We're going to start with a traditional pentatonic. For that D minor, I like to use 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And that helps. That's a pretty smooth fingering for me. It's really helpful because then a lot of the pentatonics follow that same kind of structure on the piano where they're located. So then you can go. And so that then you can move around and using the same kind of fingering. Okay, so then the next thing I would say is once you learn one, try to learn all of them in all 12 scales, in all 12 pentatonics. So we have D minor. E flat minor, E minor, F minor, F sharp minor, G minor, A flat minor does not sit well on the piano. You're forewarned. I not come up with a good solution for that. I try maybe index finger, thumb, then 2, 3, then thumb on G flat. Feels super awkward, but that's just the way that sits. And then kind of the same with the other ones. I think that's the trickiest one is A flat minor. Everything else sits pretty well. It's important to feel comfortable with all of these so that you can go in and out of them when you need to. And so I highly recommend spending lots of time on the pentatonic scales. There's a great book by Jerry Bergonzi. I highly recommend. Thought I had it here. It's one of his jazz series. It's a blue book. You can get it on Amazon. Jerry is a genius for teaching jazz, and he has a whole series. And one of them is a whole book just on pentatonics and how to organize them. And basically, it's what I'm saying right now. But you're not stuck to just that pattern of up, down. You have these notes, and you can create scale patterns just like you do with your regular scales, you know? Like when you play a scale, you can do same with a pentatonic. You do a skip. And so pentatonics create a lot of homework for us to practice, but they're incredibly helpful tools for improvisation. So then you can take, you have, 4-note pattern, and then say, okay, let's use skips. Let's say we skip the first one, and then we go up. For example, and then the way down the same. Skip one and keep going down. You can have a skip and then go down and then up. Instead of playing the E flat, I'm going to go to F. Like for a C minor pentatonic, I'm going to skip the E flat, go to F. That's what I mean by skip, I'm sorry. And then go down to the E flat, then go back to, and then skip to the G, for example. So skip up, step down, skip up. So then you have 4 choices there. You have your starting note. You're going to do a step or a skip. Is it going to be a step up or down? And is a skip going to be up or down? And using that, you can create, like 16 combinations, I believe, of how to go different patterns. That's just with one skip. You can include double skips, where instead of skipping one note, you skip 2 notes. And then that, it's another world. And so let's say we have our first note, we're going to skip up. So instead of playing E flat, we're going to play F. Then we're going to do a step up. And then we're going to do a skip down. So then once you got the first one, then you say, okay, let's do a skip down. Okay, now let's do a step up. Now let's do a skip up. And then a step up. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And the opposite. And so then you can work the pattern up, work the pattern down, and change all your different patterns with skips and steps. And that'll help you create a more diverse language, more than just having the scale and up. So when you do, like, for example, that would be skip, step down, skip up, step down, skip up, step down. The opposite is coming down. Skip down, step up, skip down, step up, skip down, step up. And so there are, lots of, I think 16 versions of that. And you can apply this principle of skips and steps to any scale. That'll allow you to create more diversity in your other scales, like your Dorian scale, right? You can do skip, step up. That actually sounded pretty cool. I kind of like that. And so it'll get you out of the rut of what you're normally used to doing, which is scale up and scale down, which everyone works on. So it's cool to work on different scale patterns so that even though you're playing the same notes, you're doing them in a different arrangement. So once you start working on different scale patterns and start working on all your pentatonic scales, you can start thinking about how to use them improvisationally, more than just here is this, pattern. Up and down, right? More than that, how do you use that improvisationally? Improvisationally, you let loose. You don't think, here's my pattern. You just kind of let it flow out of you and maybe play fragments of those patterns. So like if we're playing So What? And so then it's much less about here's my scale going up, here's my scale going down, here's this pattern going up, here's this pattern going down. It's more about taking little fragments of these and kind of creating combinations of them, but doing it like you're talking. Rather than reciting a speech, we're improvising this conversation, right? I don't have every word written, and I'm going to play it exactly this way. And so take a little motive. And then take it to your motivic development on them. Up, down. And then in between that, scales, patterns, motivic development, you can do sidestepping. So then you're going to go up half a step, up or down half a step. Jerry Bergonzi talks about it in degrees. Playing out is not just in or out. You have degrees. If we're in a D minor pentatonic and we start improvising on an E minor pentatonic, we still have all the notes of D minor 7 in there. This fits completely inside of D minor 7. So it's not going to sound out. you go back to D minor, it's like, okay, there are little colors, and it's more like vanilla and like cherry vanilla. It's not gonna be like chocolate and vanilla. They're going to be very similar, right? So now let's go to, I don't know, F sharp minor pentatonic. Okay. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Of our 5 notes, F sharp is outside of your D minor pentatonic. A is inside. B is inside. C sharp is outside. E is inside. So 3 of your 5 notes are inside the D minor scale. So not quite super out, but more out than E minor, because E minor was not out at all, right? So now you're, you know, a little bit out. Okay, let's keep going one step further. Let's go A flat minor pentatonic. Now that sounds pretty out. Let's see how many steps we have there. A flat, not in D minor 7. B natural is in the Dorian scale. C sharp, no, or D flat. E flat, no. And G flat, no. So 4 out of 5 notes are not in there. So how many notes in common with your original scale? That will tell you how far out you are. So you're still not all the way out. You could go like E flat minor, where you have 0 notes in common. Or if you go half a step down to D flat minor, again, E and B natural, those are in the D minor scale. So it doesn't sound as out as E flat minor. So you create more contrast that way. So then one thing you can do is that you can go in and out of your scales that way and create tension by having fewer notes out of the original scale. Obviously, this is planned ahead of time. You want to be able to hear them in sound and go, oh, okay, wow, this is a sound, versus and as your sound discrimination gets better, you can hear and just feel intuitively where you want to go. And so then it starts creating, you start creating more interesting things. So when you have the chord quality, you're sidestepping, pentatonics, and sussing, changing the chord quality but keeping the same bass note like we talked earlier. So now you can play pentatonics within your sus. And then you can stay in there for a little bit. Stay in that room of the pentatonic feel. And then you go back maybe the next chorus you go back to your, you know, like if I was playing the last A, I'm in the bebop. And then you go, the next chorus, you go to a different sound, maybe minor, major. And then by kind of, that starts, you keep moving the solo forward by changing concepts with each chorus, or if you want to do it even quicker, through each A section. And actually helps keeping the form. Maybe you'll do bebop the first A, pentatonic the second A, minor, major on the bridge. You know, like back to the top. And so then, and then I went to the sus, D sus on the last A, for example. So now you're like, you move the solo along in different ways rather than just stay in your D Dorian throughout the whole solo. There's only so much you can do there before it's like, okay, we're ready to hear something different, you know? Okay, so now another tool that you can do is part of the pentatonic is, I call it tritonic, using 3 notes in a scale. 1, 4, 5. It's cool to learn them in all your different patterns. Like, let's say you learn them in whole tones. And then whole tone down. Let's use the next whole tone. What's cool about them is that you can put them in sequence to help you get into another register of the piano. Let's say you're here. So it helps you go to the next register. And again, you can sidestep with these. Which is really helpful because now you have another sound that you can tap into. And so as you as you start learning more and more, you start getting more sounds that you can tap into for these things. And so we have pentatonic, diminished. We haven't talked about diminished. The diminished scale is another very important tool that we can use. We could dedicate a whole class on just the one sound, on just diminished or just pentatonic, for example, because there's lots to say about those topics. But when you have a minor scale, I like to use the whole half diminished scale. And I like to use, on my voicing, I like to use the 6/9 voicing, which is F 6 9. It kind of looks like a G13 on your left hand. And so you have to work on that scale and develop language in that scale, just like we were developing language inside the pentatonic scale in the same kind of way, by thinking of different patterns. And then, honestly, just taking a motive, doing your motivic development that we talked about earlier. And think about it as a room and stay in that room for a little bit. Allow that sound to permeate and to change that feel. You're not in the library anymore. Now you're like in the man cave or something, you know? Again, you can do your sidestepping thing where you go take a pattern and you're going to go up and down, you know, or down. Combine it, pentatonic and diminished. Pentaminished. Right? Maybe we have a new scale there. Because there are like kind of fourths relationships there. You have a fourth, you have a third, fourth, third, fourth, third, and a fourth. So then you can take those fourths and build them in minor thirds. Now there's a pentatonic scale, 1, 3, 5, and then your major 6, and you're going to use the 6 instead of the 7th. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can also do 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. And skip the 4. And those notes are inside of that diminished scale. And then do a combination of maybe, you know, pentatonic, to diminish, into a bebop enclosure kind of a thing. And so it doesn't always have to stay in that room for a long time, but it's one approach to creating and establishing that sound and kind of sticking with it. So we have pentatonic, diminished, tritonic. There's whole tone. I haven't talked very much about whole tone, but the same thing applies there. Not just a scale up and down. You know, that's kind of already been used a lot. You can take motives from that and figure out if there's a whole tone scale that works better with your chord. So if we start with the C whole tone, we only have 3 notes in common. The other 3 are out. If we start on the C sharp whole tone, we have 4 notes in common and 2 that are not in common. And so and then finish out in combination with something else. So that's a really cool way of kind of going in and out of these different sounds. There's only 2 whole tone scales, so there's not a much sidestepping, but you can take a pattern and then go to the second host and then you know, it can create tension very much that way. You know, just got to be careful to be able to keep the form. And, you know, the best way to keep the form is to just sing the melody. And so on and so forth. It's hard to do because you're trying to come up with this pattern and play it, you know, progressively through different keys, but somehow keep the melody. So it's definitely something you got to work on so that when you go to these different things, they don't throw you off from the form of the melody. Another important thing is that we don't want to just say, to think about these as intellectual things. And okay, well, I think I'm going to start taking a whole tone pattern starting on the flat 7, and we're going to take this up a half a step to build tension on the last day. How about we go now? You know, like, jazz doesn't work that way. Conversations don't work that way. And improvising is just like talking. We're improvising this conversation based off things we already know. If I'm thinking about how am I going to use the word, you know, pick a fancy word and say how you're trying to learn how to use it in conversation, you know, and you're thinking, oh, pernicious. Well, and you're just sitting there, you know, waiting to use that word in a conversation, and you're gonna kind of throw people off. Like, it just has to be, oh, well, that kind of behavior is pernicious. We go, yeah, we don't tolerate that or whatever. So it has to come, it has to kind of flow there naturally. So the more you like internalize this language, this stuff that you already know, rather than experimenting with it. Experiment at home. Your experiments are for your practice. It's not really practice, it's experimenting. What happens if we do this? How can we do this and keep the form? How, you know, that's really what you're practicing at home. During the gig, you want to be able to just flow and not worry, not judge yourself, not think, oh, I'm not creating enough different sounds here to make it interesting, or and so it's important to set those boundaries between performance and experimentation and practice, so that you're just having a normal conversation. You just happen to have lots of fancy language that you talk that way. You know what I mean? Rather than purposefully using it so you sound smart, because you're not going to impress anybody when you try to sound smart like that. So, but these are all tools. I'm just going to talk about one more scale. This scale is a 9-note scale. I don't think it has a name. There is this French musician, composer, classical composer from the middle of the 20th century, Olivier Messiaen. It looks like It looks like Oliver Messiaen when you're looking at it. And he came up with these ideas of how to organize notes and scales, and he has modes. The first mode is a whole tone scale. The second mode is a diminished scale. And the third mode is a 9-note scale. We know it as we use a truncated version of that. So see, that was a fancy word, truncated, but it fit exactly that's how I would use to describe something that's shorter than the original, but the essence of it is still the same, right? So when that was a good use of a fancy word in which we could all understand what we're trying to say. I wasn't doing it to sound smart, more like it was just a good way to describe that particular scale. So anyways, we call it the, instead of diminish, you have augmented. And so we know it as the augmented scale, which is 1, flat 3, major 3, 5, sharp 5, major 7, and 1. But that is a truncation. The whole thing is 3 minor chords put together. Like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and go. And the same rules apply than the other ones. Anyways, that is all that we have time for today. Thank you so much for having me today. And I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about all this stuff. Thank you so much, Michael.
Dr. John O'Leary, thank you so much for an awesome session. I'm glad we're going to be able to archive these sessions because this is a lot of information that you can go back, rewind, hit pause, practice, and go over and over. I like the fact that you broke down the scales, but also showed us that you don't have to go up and down, up and down. You can create your own exercises. I mean, that was an awesome thing, especially for our younger players. I want to recommend everyone, if you like today's session, go back to our archives at www.clearwaterjazz.com/education. And if you have a future session topic that you want to see, just email us at info@clearwaterjazz.com, and we would love to hear from you. Any feedback is great. And don't forget to continue to share this great content on jazz education. So Dr. O'Leary, we thank you so much again. I'm your guest host, Michael Kernodle, and we'll see you on the next one. Keep swinging, everyone.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you too. Bye-bye.